Hi guys, now listen. Last time we were together, I showed you how feeding these pets of ours. That Evelyn is just up on top of that cage if you can see it. Can Tommy zoom in? Look at Evelyn, so active in my home. It's unreal. And then we got our Callie still busy. She's got enough crickets. She's pretty content. So is our Timothy. But you know what? I did bring something for the cameraman. I know. We got to feed everybody. All right, friends. Today we're going to go right back to our Winn Dixie. We're looking at chapter 8 right now. Remember, she just made friends with Miss Franny Black. You guys can see right here, this is my dog, Loki. And if Loki wants to stay with us, that's great. He doesn't need anything to eat. He's pretty much content. But he's got to watch what he wants to eat down here. All right, chapter 8. Winn Dixie's bald spots started growing fur. And the fur that he had to begin with started looking shiny and healthy. And he didn't limp anymore. And you could tell that he was proud of looking so good, proud of not looking like a stray. I thought what he needed most was a collar and a leash. So I went into Gertrude's Pets, where there were fish and snakes and mice and lizards and gerbils and pet supplies. I found a real handsome red leather collar with a matching leash. Winn Dixie was not allowed to come inside the store. There was a big sign on the door that said, "No dogs allowed." So I held the collar and the leash up to the window, and Winn Dixie, who was sitting on the other side of the window, pulled up his lip and showed me his teeth and sneezed and wagged his tail, something furious. So I knew he absolutely loved that leash and collar combination. But it was very expensive. I decided to explain my situation to the man behind the counter. I said, "I don't get a big enough allowance to afford something this fancy, but I love this collar and leash, and so does my dog. And I was thinking that maybe you could set me up on an installment plan." "An installment plan?" said the man. "Gertrude!" somebody screamed in a real irritable voice. I looked around. Here was a parrot, and she was just sitting on top of one of the fish tanks looking right at me. "An installment plan?" I said, ignoring the parrot. "You know where I promised to give you my allowance every week, and then you give me the leash and the collar now." "I don't think I can do that," said the man. He shook his head. No, the owner, she wouldn't like that." He looked down at the counter. He wouldn't look at me. He had thick black hair, and it was slicked back like Elvis Presley. And he had a name tag on that said Otis. Or I could work for you. I could come in and sweep the floors and dust the shelves and take out the trash. I could do that." I looked around Gertrude's Pets. There was sand and sunflower seeds everywhere and a big dust bunnies all over the floor. I could tell that it needed to be swept. "Ah," said Otis, and he looked down at the counter once more. "Gertrude!" the parrot screamed again. "I'm trustworthy. I am. I'm new in town, but my daddy's a preacher. He's the preacher at the Open Arms Baptist Church of Naomi, so I'm real honest. But the only thing is, Winn Dixie, my dog, he would have to come inside with me, because if we get separated for too long, he starts to howl something terrible." "Gertrude doesn't like dogs," said Otis. "Is she the owner?" "Yes, no. He finally looked up and he pointed to the fish tank. "That Gertrude. The parrot. I named her after the owner." "Gertrude's a pretty bird," screamed Gertrude. "Well, she might like Winn Dixie," I told Otis. "Almost everybody does. Maybe he would come inside and meet her, and if the two of them get along, then could I have the job?" Maybe," and he looked down at the counter again. So I went and I opened the door, and Winn Dixie came trotting in from outside. "Dog!" screamed Gertrude. "I know it," Otis told her. And then Gertrude got real quiet. And she sat on top of the fish tank, cocked her head from one side to the other, looking at Winn Dixie. And Winn Dixie stood and stared right back at her. He didn't hardly move. He didn't wag his tail. He didn't smile. He didn't sneeze. He just stared at Gertrude, and she stared at him. And then she spread her wings out real far and flew and landed right on top of Winn Dixie's head. "Dog!" she croaked. Winn Dixie wagged his tail just a little tiny bit. And then Otis said, "You can start on Monday." "Thank you. You won't be sorry." On the way out of Gertrude's Pets, I said to Winn Dixie, You are better at making friends than anybody I've ever known. I bet if my mama knew you, she would think you were the best dog ever. Winn Dixie was smiling up at me, and I was smiling down at him, and so neither one of us was looking where we were going, and we almost bumped right into Sweetie Pie Thomas. She was standing there, sucking on a knuckle of her third finger, staring in the window at Gertrude's Pets. She took her finger out of her mouth and looked at me. Her eyes were all big and round. Was that a bird sitting on that dog's head? She had her hair tied up in a ponytail with a big pink ribbon. But it wasn't much of a ponytail, and it wasn't much of a ribbon, and there were only a few strands of hair. Why, yes, I told her. I seen it. She nodded her head and put her knuckle back into her mouth. And then she took it out real quick again. I seen that dog in church, too. He was catching a mouse. I want a dog just like that, but my mama won't let me get no dog. She says if I'm real good, I might get to buy me a goldfish or one of them gerbils. That's what she says. Can I pet your dog? Sure, I told her. Sweetie Pie stroked Winn Dixie's head so long and serious that his eyes drooped half closed and drool came out of the side of his mouth. I'm going to be 6 years old in September. I get to stop sucking on my knuckle once I'm 6, said Sweetie Pie. I'm having a party. Do you want to come to my party? The theme is pink. Sure, I told her. Can this dog come? You bet. And then all of a sudden, I felt happy. I had a dog. I had a job. I had Miss Franny Block for a friend. And I had my first invitation to a party in Naomi. It did not matter that it came from a 5-year-old and the party wasn't until September. I didn't feel lonely as much anymore. Chapter 9. Just about everything that happened to me that summer happened because of Winn Dixie. For instance, without him, I would have never met Gloria Dump. He was the one who introduced us. What happened was this. I was riding my bike home from Gertrude's Pets, and Winn Dixie was running alongside me. He went past Dunlap and Steve Dewberry's house, and when Dunlap and Stevie saw me, they got on their bikes and they started following me. They wouldn't ride with me. They just rode behind me and whispered things that I couldn't hear. Neither one of them had any hair on their head because their mama shaved their head every week during the summer because of the one time Dunlap got fleas in his hair from their cat Sadie. And now they look like two identical bald-headed babies, even though they weren't twins. Dunlap was 10 years old, like me, and Stevie was 9, but he was tall for his age. I can hear you, I hollered back at them. I can hear what you're saying. But I couldn't. Winn Dixie started to race way ahead of me. You better watch out, Dunlap hollered. That dog is headed right for the witch's house. Winn Dixie, I called. But he kept on going faster and hopped a gate and went right into the most overgrown jungle of a yard that I had ever seen. You better go get your dog out of there, Dunlap said. The witch is going to eat that dog, Stevie said. Shut up, I told them. I got off my bike and I went up to the gate and hollered, Winn Dixie, you better come on out